The convenient narrative regarding Kid Cudi's Man on the Moon 3 is that it is a return to form for Cudi after dropping some questionable projects in the last few years. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Speed and Bullet to Heaven. I would say we saw glimpses of Cudi regaining his former glory on albums like Passion, Pain and Demon Slaying, as well as his collaborative effort with Kanye West, Kids See Ghosts. Either way, I think it's fair to say that there were some high expectations for this album. After all, correct me if I'm wrong, but for a long time, it was looking more likely that Cudi would not make the final album of a trilogy that has helped define and cement his place in the modern hip-hop pantheon of influential artists. Well, 10 years after the release of Man on the Moon 2, fans were blessed with an 18-track, 4-part album. This is consistent with the ever-increasing number of tracks being squeezed onto albums by artists to increase their streaming numbers. That being said, no track is squeezed onto Man on the Moon 3, and no track is there solely to augment streaming numbers. Man on the Moon 3 only has 4 features, but this is more than enough. The artist for the album artwork is Sam Spratt, who has painted various album artworks for different artists like Logic, Childish Gambino, Janelle Monáe, etc., etc. The artwork is more reminiscent of Man on the Moon 1 in its facial duality and colour scheme. It's definitely the best album artwork I've seen in a while. The wispy design and vibrant colours help represent the psychedelic beats Cudi has helped popularise, plus sonically, like the artwork, the album is split into 2 despite it having 4 acts. What I mean by this is how there are Travis Scott influences, as Cudi said in his Apple Music interview with Zane Lowe. Tracks such as She Knows This and Damaged are very Travis Scott-esque in how Cudi raps and his use of autotune. Travis was inspired by Cudi, and Cudi was inspired by Travis for half of this album, so the cycle of artistic influence completes itself. The concept is both a conclusion of the trilogy, but at the same time revisits older themes of addiction, nightmares, and dark thoughts, despite Cudi's growth as a person over the last 10 years. I don't think the concept is the primary focus of the album, as the introductory track is very short at 37 seconds. The concept, either way, is arguably closer to Man on the Moon 1 as opposed to Man on the Moon 2 in my view. One of my favourite tracks is definitely Show Out. Skepta, Pop Smoke, Kid Cudi, and a drill beat is an unfamiliar combination that shouldn't have worked in theory, but it really did. Cudi managed to complement Skepta's assertive, high-energy verse. They've got guns the same size as Kevin Hart. That's comical and threatening all at once. Overall, though, I do think I preferred the second half of the album from Mr. Solo Dolo 3 downwards. With Mr. Solo Dolo 3, I like how it's a little quicker in pace compared to the first Mr. Solo Dolo on Man on the Moon 1, and I like how the track's hook is both withdrawn but defiant, with an infectious hook. The way that he delivers that hook, I just think is very deep. Sad People starts with Cudi's iconic hums, where Cudi follows up with a familiar style of singing. This and Mr. Solo Dolo 3 have the most classic Cudi vibes. Sad People felt contemplative, and yet I got the sense that Cudi's quite content at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Trippie Redd and Kid Cudi complement each other well on Rockstar Nights. They're similar enough to fit well, but different enough that it doesn't sound repetitive or that Cudi could have made the track on his own. On top of that, Trippie Redd, in my opinion, has a great track record of being a balanced feature on a track without taking over the track and overshadowing the main artist. The track was braggadocious, a little like how King Wizard was. Also, The Void deserves an honourable mention. It could be said that the album was safe for an artist like Cudi, with no track particularly pushing the envelope. The second half especially is a polished version of a sound we've already received from Cudi, though we haven't heard that sound in a long time, in his defence. The Travis influence could potentially work against Cudi if you dislike the direction that Travis has helped push stylistic autotune in. Additionally, an argument could be made that the first half of the album may age poorly depending on the longevity of melodic autotuned rap. This album, though, should be appreciated relative to where you are currently and not relative to where you were when Man on the Moon 1 came out. I think that's the basis of where a minority of Cudi fans have been disappointed with this album. Amongst his most dedicated fans, there's this sense that Cudi saved them, and thus there's a strong emotional attachment to what a Cudi album should provide to somebody in their life, especially if that listener is not in the best possible place. Personally, I think this album will age well, and that disappointed fans should give it time to grow on them. Kid Cudi truly is the chosen, just like the name of the album.